Hello everyone, this is Linda with Icky Chic Designs. This has been such a fun little video to make because I wanted to continue on the video that I made earlier this week on how to create and design your own floral elements, your slow stitch projects, using just basic shapes. And we started in that first video. We used squares, circles, and triangles or pie shapes. And I showed you how to create several different layouts using that, and they were all very similar. Now this one I'm calling it Stepping It Up from that basics, because we are still using the basics, but now we're beginning to add elements that lends itself more to the side of fiber art. Slow stitching and fiber art basically can be the same thing, but to go more to the fiber art side, we need to add some more fibers, if that makes sense. And so that's a lot of times with yarns or ribbons or threads or whatever we have in that element. So let's look at this piece. It is constructed of the basic circle and pie shape. No squares in here. We didn't start with a flower pot or anything like that. Everything is made with scraps. The big medallion flower is a 4-inch flower, and I cut it. And then I placed, I just cut little pieces of this lace that I had. Sorry, I'm having trouble with words today. Little pieces of this white lace, and I just laid it around. Okay. And on top of that was these little nubby things that came out of another piece of lace. And I laid that on there because it gave it a little more dimension. Okay. There's a fiber or two run through here. This one here, for instance. This one running up through here. Then I came in and did the stitching over that. I just did overlap stitching to connect the big medallion flower. Okay. Then I came in and just did some accenting with different colors of embroidery floss. We've got the 2 shades of purple, this shade of coral, and this shade of yellow-green here. All together, those play very well with all the other colors. Now, this piece here and this piece here are quarters out of the 2-inch circle and cut into 4 pieces, and so that gave the pie shape here, or triangle shape. And one I turned on point and made a flower element. One I turned the other direction and made a flower element. Okay. Here is another circle, just a strictly circle. I haven't done a lot of stitching on it because I didn't want it to fight with this flower for attention. Okay. It's basically here to fill in and to balance this piece. But you still want it to be pretty, but you don't want it to overshadow the focus. It's like putting accents on syllables in words. You want to accent your piece, and then the other pieces play in to make the whole word. But you want that accent to fall on the focal syllable of that word, and that's kind of like what we're doing here. I used more scraps just to simulate stems and other little interesting things, and yarns and ribbons down in here. And then I made a little bow out of some gauzy fabric and added that on there. Now this piece was just added because I wanted something, I didn't want another flower element, but I wanted something that would add another element of interest to this piece besides shapes and circles and shapes. So I thought, let's do a straight line here. And when I was auditioning it and laying it out, I put that down inside of this mat, which I have talked about before, that when I'm designing, I often lay my mat down and then design my pieces inside, laying out my different pieces till I get the look that I want. Then I take a photograph so it's on my phone, so I can't forget what it was I wanted to do. And when I did that and I put this in here, I really liked the way that it helped to border and balance this whole piece. Yeah, I didn't need any more foliage, leaves, flowers, anything over here because this strip works. And it's a different look and it plays well with all the other shapes. So stepping it up simply means to take your basic skills of designing with your basic shapes and then start being a little more adventurous, adding a little bit more, adding more stitching, adding more fibers and other fabrics and ribbons and scraps and just whatever you have to keep adding interest to it. And then maybe even design something that you like that sets it off. And it can be as simple as that. Could have been a piece of lace, whatever you would prefer to see there. The bow helps to weight down the bottom because the medallion is so large, it weights the top. And when looking at it without the bow, our mind seems to want to tilt it. And when that happens, we know that our balance is off. And that usually has to do with some of our composition. So when composing, I needed to weight down or put elements down here that would be as focal or heavy looking as this. And so when I did that, then that seated the whole project. And now when you look at it, it doesn't want to tilt in any direction. It's flat and it wants to stay that way. And so you know that you got your balance and your composition correct. Okay. Now when composing, elements may fall outside of your mat. That's okay. For instance, part of this flower over here falls outside of the mat. But since I want this element on the left, I catch enough of this that you would never really think about that element being outside the focal area unless I told you, because it just works for us. Part of this part down here falls outside of the mat, and so that works too. So think about it. Circle, a quarter of a circle, a circle, a quarter of a circle. Just a piece of torn fabric laid down and stitched. Lots of different scraps, yarns, and threads. Okay, and that's quite a bit of stitching also involved here and there and everywhere. And that steps it up, makes it fall more into a fiber art piece that's a little classier than just our basics designs. So when you're creating for yourself, you probably would like to learn to step it up, go a little bit further, create more of an art piece for yourself, or if it's a gift. If you're just stitching for fun and something to do, a little simpler ones like were in my other video would be fine. So, okay, I hope you enjoyed that and you understand a little bit more about how you can step up your basics and go from there. And when you're studying these pieces and other work of other artisans, and there are a lot of really talented ones here on YouTube, study their stitchery and see if you can, first of all, identify the basic shape that they're working in. Then identify how they weighted the piece or composed or the composition so that that piece appears balanced. So look at how they balance their piece. So you have their basic shapes and their balance. Then look at their color choices, how those colors play together. Check those colors out on a color wheel. Are they opposites? Are they complementary color? What are they? Are they in the same color range? See how they play off their colors, especially when you're looking at a piece that you love the colors that they used. See what colors they used, and then look at your color wheel and try to figure out why they use those specific colors. Look at their stitching. Now, if you're looking at embroidery art, that's one thing. But if you're looking at textile art, fabric art, the embroidery art isn't the main thing, although there's a lot of beautiful embroidery in a piece. But like this one is done, straight stitches and some French knots. It's like that's all this piece needs, because it's the scraps, the textures, the colors that's doing the work. It's not the stitching itself. Okay? Although the stitching is super important because it's adding the color, all right, all around and coordinating everything in and giving that handmade stitchery look that we all love so much. Okay, there's some things for you to look for when you want to learn to step up your own slow stitch projects and fiber art pieces, at least from my point of view. Remember that every artisan has their own eye, their own judgment of what is art, what is good, what is bad, their own judgment of color combinations, balance, composition, focal point, depth of field. All these things play out in each excuse me, artisan's eye in a different way. So when you visit my channel and I say do certain things or look for this or look for that, that's from my perspective. That's not written in stone. That's not the guideline that works across the field, because other artisans might disagree or adapt or change that. And that's what art is about. So you just simply want to learn and then adapt it, take what you can and use it and throw the rest out, because you want to create your art, not my art. And so always remember that what you hear is subjective in art. And there's none of us that create that are perfect in what we do. And if you know my motto, I love perfectly imperfect. And my work shows that, because there's nothing perfect about what I do. So I hope I've encouraged you, inspired you, and gave you some pointers that you can use to step up your slow stitch and fiber art. Thank you so much for being here with me. Until next time, please stay scrap happy.